gave you a misery as a help.
They gave me what as
A
help?
misery.
Misery.
Yeah.
Yes.
No. I believe in them, and I believe that they want to help us through learning or alert, as far as I know.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't know what I wonder, but a misery
Yeah.
is a kind of result of my ignorance, or
Yes.
and do they really give you a misery? I mean, which is not, like, does not have something to do with me.
No, never. All the misery that comes to you, one way or another, is linked to you. Even when you cannot see how it is linked to you. That is sometimes difficult to see. That is sometimes difficult to explain also, other than you must have done something wrong in another life. And that can be very painful. Most people don't believe in another life. But the misery is there to help you get rid of your ignorance.
Yeah.
But you know, there are different levels of karma. If you live in a country where there is war, conflict, many people are suffering, either from hunger or from the insecurity, violence, rape. It is then difficult to say you are in this misery because you did something wrong. There is karma on a world level, on a level of the global scale. There is karma on a national scale, national karma. So you may not directly be linked to that misery, the misery that comes forth out of the war. But then again, you have to ask yourself, why did the higher powers make you become born in that country riddled by war? So on a personal level, you may not be able to directly find out how you are guilty, and so you have to suffer this war because there are powers at work. But then again, if there wasn't a lesson to be learned from this misery caused by the war, those higher powers would have made you be born in another country where there is no such conflict. But this goes very deep, and it will be very difficult to detect. And as a spiritual person or a leader or a counselor, I know that there are people who go into that and tell you what you are wrong about, what you did wrong. I think that is not allowed. You cannot have the arrogance to tell other people they did something wrong in another life. That is very presumptuous. So that really is something that few people will have the ability to figure out, because it first of all requires very, very deep insight into not only yourself, but also the world around you. And the situation of war always leads to progress. So what I see when people look at war, when people talk about war, the people only focus on the misery. What I see, going beyond the surface of the violence and the misery, is that every conflict leads to evolution. Every country leads to human advancement. So institutions like the United Nations were created to try to avoid war. Not only on a national scale, but on an international scale. All kinds of institutions like the Red Cross, which is also huge, UNICEF for children, and many, many other institutions, NATO, which is actually a war machine, but one with a conscience. All those institutions were created because of war. Most people fail to see the upgoing line, the line of development, because they focus, because they are caught up by their emotion, they are not able to see the real reality with a capital R. They do not see the underlying process that is going on that has caused the war in the first place. Because of ignorance, this conflict occurs. People not in control of their ego, their pride. They start wars among each other, making many people victims because of their ignorance, because of their lack of control. But what you see is that after each war, people start to search their souls. What went wrong? How can we avoid this in the future? And little by little we climb the ladder towards enlightenment. Another example in this case is what happened in India. This is horrible. Even thinking of it, my neck becomes cold and my hair, what is left, stands up. There was this 23-year-old girl who was brutally raped in a bus. Not just raped, they put a steel pipe into her anus and vagina. They destroyed everything inside. Horrible. But now look what's happening as a result of that. Hundreds of millions of people, and not only in India, but around the globe, start to look for answers. And India is a country with great contrasts. There are educated people, but there are also people still living kind of very primitively. It is very sad what happened to the girl, but you can see her as a martyr. She sacrificed her life to bring about change. And that is not a justification. I do not say people should just sacrifice themselves so that I can live in a world that is better. It is sad. It is really horrible what has happened. But I try not to be stuck in that emotion of what happened with her. I think I'm more sensitive than most other people and am much more touched by it. But I then see the rest of the picture, which many people fail to see. And that is the huge wave that has been created that makes people conscious. It forces people out of their ignorance. It will happen again, for sure. But slowly but certainly we are going up. So what did this girl do wrong to deserve this? We cannot find any justification for that. But in the whole picture of the process, there is also hope. There is hope, there is progress. Does that answer your question a little bit? Yeah? About misery? Okay. On being firmly established in non-violence, there is abandonment of hostility in his presence. This is very clear. Do you still encounter unfriendliness from people? Do you still encounter aggression from people? If so, you are not established in non-violence yet. I've been struggling with this for years, especially in this country, where people are very sensitive and immediately react. Then comes this Dutch guy, stubborn, strong-willed, with an ambition that makes other people's hair rise up in their necks. And they don't hold back to react. Unfriendly. Which then led me to complain. Those bigots, racists, whatever. But I was wrong. It was my attitude. I didn't hit anybody, I didn't shout at anybody. It was my attitude. People feel your energy, and if that energy is not friendly, is not non-violent, they will react accordingly. And in the past years, I feel the yamas and niyamas have totally established in me. Just as a result of being occupied with them for the last 28 years or so. And making mistakes, honestly looking at those mistakes, which is the next subject, of course, the practice of truthfulness. And every time adjusting a little bit, here and there, and learning to smile, and stop being violent on all levels. I've never been violent in ways of hitting people or even shouting at people. Always stay calm, also in conflict. But there is violence under your skin. Your desire leads to violence. That is why this society is full of violence. You can see it on people's faces, their expression. People are so full of desire, they go through walls to get what they want. That is violence. People will react against that. If you experience resistance, unfriendly resistance from people, you have to look in the mirror. You have to ask yourself, why do they react like that? Do not blame them. They are only your mirror. They are only acting in their ignorance, reacting to the energy that you are radiating. One very important value we have to learn to adopt in all this, in your practice of non-violence, is the art of forgiving. First yourself. You have to start with yourself. Yoga always starts with the self. We have made mistakes in the past, not knowingly and willingly. We make mistakes out of ignorance. There are mistakes that I made that if I think of them, they make me cringe in horror. But I quickly, because I've been confronted with those memories many times over, I've developed the ability to be realistic understand that it was in ignorance. And that leads you to the ability to forgive. And this ability you will apply to other people as well. If I look at my situation with my partner, my wife, I feel sorry for her. That is forgiveness. Even though she gave me a lot of misery, but I deserved that misery. I went into it with my eyes open. I was not pure. I can blame her and talk bad about her, but that is not fair, that is not realistic. Do you see? Also, there are many, many very valuable lessons I've learned. I hope she did too, but I think she did not. And that makes me feel even more sorry. Yes?
What do you mean when you said you went into it with your eyes open?
Don't ask difficult questions, Megan. Now I have to open up my soul again to you. Okay. How we met, that relationship was really a karmic relationship. All relationships are, actually. But what happens, you know from the philosophy of the kleshas, that birds of a feather flock together. I came to Korea in 1997. Korean society was very different from what it is now. And I ended up in a total culture shock. The people at the Hapkido gym, which was the only reason why I came to Korea, were just outright hostile to me, racist. In my presence, they said the most ugly things, thinking that I wouldn't be able to understand it. Devilish. And I didn't literally understand what they were saying, but I felt what they were doing. And I had no doubt about it. When I discussed it with the gym owner, he said, no, this is impossible. You are seeing things that don't exist. Then came a friend of mine from Holland who does speak Korean and understand Korean. He came 1.5 months. He came in May, I arrived in March. And they thought he doesn't speak Korean. And they just continued doing what they did. And when I first told him what was happening, he said, no, Ron, you must be mistaken. But he heard what they said, and repetitively. And he said, you know what, Ron, you were right. This is just incredible. So, really, but I was not ever going to give up. I had lived towards coming to Korea for 9 years and prepared and left everything behind. And it actually made me more stubborn. Hence my violent attitude. Because you put your foot down and you say, what the heck? You're not going to bully me away from here. I will reach my goal. I will get my 3rd or 4th degree black belt, whatever you do. You make me even more resolved. Anyway, total culture shock. My wife at that time was running a pizza shop, Chicago Pizza. I don't know if that still exists, but that is a chain in Korea, quite famous pizza chain. Chicago Pizza, just next to the Hapkido gym. And her son was practicing Hapkido. And she was divorced. And at that time, divorce was really rare in Korea. And those women who divorced, who had the guts to divorce, almost, they were being puked out by society. The man walks away with his nose up high, and the women are always to blame, no matter what the man did wrong. The man walks away with the children, all the assets, and and the woman is doomed to live in poverty. Behind the Hapkido gym was not a yogwan, but this other traditional kind of lodgings, very small rooms in a dilapidated building, and all the people that lived there were all poor, divorced women. She was not poor, she was strong-willed, like I was, but kind of living in isolation, running her pizza shop. One day she came down the stairs, because the gym was in the basement, to pay the tuition fee for her son, and she saw me and she immediately felt sympathy. She saw my misery. I was depressed, dark. And so she told her son, she saw an opportunity there, because my wife was very diligent in studying things when she was a child, but also as an adult. Always busy with education, studying English, Japanese, etc. So she wanted her son also. Her son was a member of Youn's English, Dr. Youn. And she thought, hey, foreigner, let's invite him for pizza. So she told her son, ask him in English to come and have a pizza. And she thought that I could teach her son English, of course. So I went there to have pizza. And I didn't talk with her son, I talked with her all night. Hours and hours. Immediately there was chemistry. Because we were both in misery, so there was this sympathy phenomenon. Birds of a feather flock together. But I remember from the very beginning that I felt the potential of conflict. So I felt that, and I went into it with my eyes open, because of the misery, because of attachment. She was the only person who spoke English in that village and wanted to speak with me, while I was in such a depression, such a culture shock. So in spite of the potential conflict that I felt would arise, and it did arise even within a week, I couldn't say no. I couldn't keep it out. I couldn't stop it. So that's why I said I went into it with my eyes open. But it has taught me so much about relationships. It has taught me so much about myself, about my untruthfulness to myself. I know what I did wrong. And I'm not blaming her. Although sometimes it may seem so. What was your question actually?
Just what did you mean by you went into it with your eyes open?
Yes.
I understand you had a feeling that there was like some resistance there, but you kind of ignored it?
Yes, I ignored it. I did it before.
I think we all.
When I was 25. When I was 25, when I was 20, I decided to change my life because I was miserable, unhappy. Actually, I was just lost as a teenager. At the age of 20, I decided to change my life. Yoga really helped me to do that, gave me the strength and the consciousness to do that. And then you find yourself in a black hole, because I didn't want to go back to the past, the friends of the past, the life I lived of the past. And so there is a black hole because there is nothing in return in front of you when you decide to leave everything behind because it made you miserable. So I tried to fill up that hole with sports, yoga in the first place, then Hapkido. And next I went to school. The reason to go to school was to educate myself, so I studied economics and business administration because I knew I would not want to work in a company because of the political games that are being played there, the power games. I wanted eventually to be independent. So I studied economics and business administration. But my main motivation actually was to be among people of my age. Because I was lonely, there was a gap, there was a black hole. And I was very, very shy also. So I registered at that school in my neighborhood where they had adult education. Only to find out that I didn't connect with those people, they were just like children. While I had so many experiences throughout the years before that, we just didn't connect. I didn't connect with them anymore. So there was this girl who got very interested in me and had also the stubbornness to pursue me. And she knew where I worked. I worked in a health food store. And so one evening she came to that health food store. She just wanted to have a relationship with me, and actually I didn't want to have a relationship with her, but I was lonely. And feeling the resistance, I again went in there with my eyes open. Feeling the resistance, the first thing we did was just get drunk. Because I didn't want to be there, and I didn't want to be with her. And I just got drunk. And she too. And we had a relationship for 7 years. Yeah, that's me, because I'm loyal. So that's when I lost all my hair. And I lost myself again, like I did in my teenage years. I'm too sensitive, I can't hurt people. So I couldn't hurt her, I couldn't keep her out, I couldn't send her away. So I suffered, getting drunk every weekend. If I find a person who does not cause any resistance, any waves, any conflict, I am so loyal, I will stay with you forever. And I think that is what I have found now. Because my eyes are wide open and I don't detect any suspicion or resistance or any possible seed for conflict. And that is why I so shouted off the roofs of Facebook about this. But I know, I'm fully conscious that this has only been possible because of the yamas and the niyamas being totally established in me now. Only since recently. Because I know that if there had been the slightest of resistance, we would not have connected. It was my total honesty, purity to go into this that made her open up to me. There was a connection from the very beginning, but relationships do not happen just like that. You search each other, you how do you say? Intuitively you investigate each other and you try to find connections or disconnections, resistance, etc. And you know, as a yoga teacher, a male yoga teacher, I'm surrounded by many beautiful women. And this is about chastity. I've never given in to the possibility to become a playboy. Seriously. Because I'm sensitive, if I feel attraction to somebody, I immediately feel the next step being a playboy means that you use people for your own pleasure. And you can have fun, of course, both. But just that potential for misery did not allow me to give in to that. It is a matter of integrity. And integrity is something of a highly sensitive value. It is a matter of anticipation. What if scandal occurs? I will lose everything that I've worked so hard for. But it is also a responsibility towards other people. Because going into sexual relationships that have no deeper value, you are interfering in other people's karma. So I have preserved my chastity until the right person came along. If I had not done that, and that is what I was trying to tell you with this, my energy would have been scattered. She would have felt my impurity. There wouldn't have been a connection. This is the story of the yamas and the niyamas. Living up to them, it will take many years to fine-tune and polish it all, but living up to them eventually leads to incredible things happening in your life. Manifesting your wishes over the decades, not over the years, even over the decades, manifesting your wishes and connecting eventually with somebody who's really worth to sacrifice for. I've never felt in my life that I wanted to sacrifice for anybody. Now I do. I don't know what you called it, but I think that is love. And I say time and time again, I can't believe this, but I do. It's incredible, but it is credible. I don't deserve this, but I do. Because I know what has led to this. I know that it is my purity that has led to this, my honesty. So it is incredible, but it is credible. And I don't deserve this because I know myself, but I do because I know how I got here. It's just stupid to say those kind of things and question, because they arranged this, I didn't do anything.
That makes it feel like it was a big, grand, blind date or something, like someone arranged it.
But that is really how it works. That is really how it works. That is how I met, when I was 25, the girl that I just got drunk with. I had to learn something there. I had to learn, first of all, self-respect. It took me 7 years because I didn't take care of myself. I couldn't. Because standing up for my own rights would have hurt her. So I just waited and suffered until the day came that she said, Ron, I think it is better that we split up. You know what I said? Finally. I literally said that. Finally you got it. And from that moment on we arranged to split up. She got a house. I took 3 weeks off from my job, painted her house and put everything in place and renovated to make it ready for her to live there. My family helped also. Everything done in very nice harmony. Like that. But 7 years I had to suffer. And why? To learn. I had to learn. And then I came to Korea. After being 2 years, 3 years alone after that relationship, I came to Korea. And I had not learned enough yet, obviously. So I got into that other relationship. And I same thing happened basically on a little bit higher level. But people who know me from that period, people have manners. They have good manners. So while you're in a relationship, they won't say anything. But when the relationship was finished, several people said, we always thought this was not a good relationship. You looked so dark, and these days you're so much brighter, and etc. I suffered through that relationship also, but that is my doing. That is not her doing. It's my doing. It's because I'm not being honest with myself. That is because I'm not being strong enough to take care of myself. So you become attached, you become dependent. That's because I didn't have the self-respect to stand up for myself. And these are all things that I've learned through this. Actually, it has made me incredibly strong. Very determined, because I knew that what I needed was strength, independence, in all respects, but independence, living in this country, meaning that I need to learn this language, so I went to school. Financially being independent, I've always been financially independent. And totally independent in all respect. The only thing you need then is love. And so when you make yourself totally independent, you can also be totally pure when the right person comes around. You have no hidden motives. You don't need anything else in terms of help, in terms of material things. You just don't need anything else because you have provided that basis for yourself. You don't need anything else but love. And then you can be totally pure, without hidden motives. We have basically discussed all the yamas and niyamas. You can go home. Because theft also, I've always been a thief of myself by not having self-respect. And this is something we all need to learn. When we think of theft, we think of stealing an apple at the grocery store, or a perfume, or a ring, or a watch, or whatever, fraud in financial world. But there are many other forms of theft on a subtle level that we don't even recognize as theft or think of as theft. But we constantly steal from ourselves. And one of the things we do is denying our good characteristics. Especially people in New Age circles, in yoga, in Buddhism, etc., they have this tendency to be overly humble. And when people thank them for doing something for them, they will say, no, I didn't do anything special, and please don't thank me. And I have that tendency too. And maybe you recognize this, but this is theft on yourself. When people are grateful for something that you did, maybe even something another person would not even do for them, just receive this gratitude and say, well, you are welcome, I did it with great pleasure. Rather than saying, no, I didn't do anything for you, and it's nothing special, and it is special. You are special, and you might as well accept that. That's also a form of theft. If you understand all this, you will also feel now that there is no regret. Because everything has a reason, and everything leads to growth. If only you are not ignorant anymore and learn from your mistakes, then everything leads to progress. And I've made enormous progress. I was so shy. In my life, until just recently, nobody had ever told me, I love you. not even my mom. And I have never been able to tell anybody, I love you. I just couldn't get those words out of my mouth. As if they were something scary or so. But I can, now. Without any hesitation, very naturally. So many things have changed over the years. I'm convinced it is because of the yamas and the niyamas. Mainly. The yamas and the niyamas at first seem like nice, interesting theories, concepts. But they really determine your direction in life, your walk in life, your walk of life. And they really determine the situations you get into, the success you will have in life, in private and business. And they for sure determine whether you will have misery or not. The one yama we haven't mentioned is the non-coveting or non-possessiveness. Or actually that one has been dealt with too, because my attachment was actually based upon desire. The first relationship in which I lost all my hair, there was no attraction, but I was lonely. So I just ignored all the resistance and I accepted what I got, becoming a prisoner. But it was because of desire. And the second relationship, the relationship here in Korea, is exactly the same. It was desire to be loved, desire to be admired, desire to be helped, to be supported. And now I'm the one to help. Now I'm the one to support. You understand this? I've received so much help from people, apart from the misery. I have to pay back. Yes?
In the handout today, you were kind of talking about expectations. And
Yes.
and I remember when I was singing beginner course too, you talked about that one day a lot about expectations and relationships and how those kill relationships when you have expectations.
Yeah.
But
Because expectation is impure.
right. So I think this, I've been thinking about this a lot lately.
Yeah.
And I still don't really understand what that means to not have any expectations. Like, does that mean that you just do whatever you want to do and whatever the other person does is fine? Like,
Look,
because I feel like,
if you go into a relationship expecting things,
yeah,
you set yourself up for conflict.
like most of my friends, I feel like in their relationships,
Everybody does it.
they're like, well, like he should do this for me and he should do that for me and he should be there for me and he should do like X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there listening to them and it's like, well, that all sounds really nice, but like, what if they don't do that?
Yes, then you have conflict. Then you become irritated. You start to throw rotten eggs. No, how do you say it?
Throw a tantrum, throw a wobbler, say.
No, you start. Where's the word? Anybody speak Dutch? Anybody Dutch here? Verwijten. You throw verwijten at each other. What is verwijt again?
Yeah, get your smartphone. Translator.
I didn't bring it. But it doesn't have a Dutch translating program. Can you download Dutch English?
Sure.
Oh, yeah, I'm not that smart, you know. I will ask Sammy. You start accusing each other. And you this, and you that, and yes, but how about you? And when you go into a relationship, you basically have to accept each other as you are. But the reality is, and this is 99% of all relationships, is that you, in the back of your head, you think, what can I get out of this? Other than love, of course. Other than love, admiration, what can I get out of this? Well, this person is rich. Or this person has a promising future. This is also the problem. When I got to know Sammy, her family totally disagreed immediately.
Yeah.
Disapproved, rejected. And their main reason, at one point, because we talked about it and we continued to talk about it, I said, Sam, you know, everything they are saying, that is not the point. The essence of all this is they think that I'm poor. So I printed out my profile and I told her, give this to your mom. And she did.
And they change their tune?
Yes. Because they think yoga teacher, well, yoga teachers in Korea, they're just poor people who didn't study and at last, while not being able to have a job in a nice big company, they just get a certificate and teach yoga and they are just getting by. But my profile is very impressive. The things that I've done, the people that I taught, even being invited by the Indian embassy to teach Korean diplomats' wives and foreign diplomats' wives. That made them realize I'm not just a yoga teacher. And that totally changed their tune, indeed. And now it's just a matter of pride. Daddy's pride. He allowed our relationship, but he said, I don't want to meet him for the next 3 years. What I thought is, where the hell did he get those 3 years from? Why not 2 years or 1.5? Or I burst out in laughing. 3 years? I will just knock the door on Sola the next 3 weeks from now. I will just go up and knock the door and just, here I am. I will do that.
It's not violent.
No, that's fun. That's playing. I have no fear anymore at all. I met her mom a couple of times, and her mom is really lovely. And you know, I don't know if this is related to the class, but you know, Sam and I really meant to be with each other, and she's so happy, and I'm so happy. But what happened first is they didn't know me.
Yeah.
They know that I'm older than her, and they know that I'm a foreigner and a yoga teacher.
Who's poor?
So, but they saw her funny behavior. She's smiling all the time, and when she's texting me, there's a big smile on her face, and she's happy. While before, she was not. She was disturbed and searching for fulfillment in her life. This is why we connect with each other. She's following her heart, but like many young people who follow their heart, they don't know where to look for it. So she came to this yoga school because she thought she would find something that would help her further, like all of you did. You felt there is some potential here, something for you. So her family thinks, what the hell's wrong with her? She's so funny these days, behaving so strange. That can't be good. So they immediately disapproved. So I said to Sam, you know, I understand their reaction, but they don't even know me, so let's meet them. So one day I picked her up, and before leaving actually, I went up with the dog. I brought the dog up, and Harmony was there, the grandmother, and mother was there. And her mother saw that I was just as crazy as her daughter. We were just giggling with each other and making fun, and I hugged grandmom and I hugged mom, and they saw that we were both so crazy. And her mom is really a smart woman. Sad, because she's in a wrong relationship for 30 years, but she recognizes that this is real. And from that moment on, she has really been very busy trying to convince the other members of the family to accept this relationship, especially Dad. And he did at last accept. Do you know the movie Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? Guess Who's Coming to Dinner with Sidney Poitier and Katharine Hepburn, I think. That's a movie from the 60s, I think, when racism was still kind of normal in the United States. And segregation was even, I don't know whether that was abandoned in the 50s or the 60s, but anyway. There's this white girl who falls in love with a black guy. That is Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. And that whole story, that is our story. So Sam's mom knew that this film was being aired on one of the national broadcasters, and so she arranged her husband to be there and to watch this movie. This is so lovely, you know. And so Sam and her dad and her mom, 3 in a row on the sofa, have been watching this movie. And what Sam told me was that her father, he hadn't said one single word, and he was very intensely watching this movie. But then he said, I don't want to meet him for 3 years. But it's okay, but it won't take 3 years, maybe 3 weeks. Why am I telling you this? Oh, you were talking about, pure...
I just hear all of the things my
expectations
say, and it just makes me feel weird, because it's like, well...
We are all weird. All these people in this room are weird. Why? Why? Because we are on the path to the heart. We are on the path to divinity. And that will make us all universal souls, which we all should become in this world. But so many people are not, because they are lost in their desires and their identifications. Let me tell you something about expectation, because that was your question. When you have something that other people have not, people want to be your friend, right? They pretend they want to be your friend, but actually what they want is what you have and they don't. And you feel that. Consciously or subconsciously, but immediately you feel the resistance and you think, get away from me, what the hell do you want from me? This is why expectation is impure. Rich people know this very well, because rich people are constantly approached by people who want to be their friends. They don't want to be their friends, they want to know how to get rich. And they think, if you are rich, then you can teach me, you can help me. And rich people are very skillful at dealing with that. They have become so sensitive about this kind of issue, they immediately know when you have some expectation or whether you are being pure. And 99.9% of the people they meet are just not pure. They have expectations.
That's pretty much every day in Korea with English, right?
Like people coming up. Yeah, that's when.
I felt that so many times, never knowing when someone's a real friend or they just want to learn English.
Right. Yeah.
So, to prepare yourself for a proper relationship, make yourself strong and independent. Because as long as you are not strong and independent, you will always seek for something another person can do for you or give you or support you, teach you, whatever.
Yeah, that's what I've been...
And you're not weird. If you are weird, I'm just as weird or even weirder. It is they who are on the wrong track, and it is because of that they are always eternally suffering. They go from one misery into another while you have broken that cycle. There will surely still be misery now and then, here and there, but much, much less than those people who think you are weird or might think you are weird. It is your happiness and their lack of it.
I just, like, I mean, I know that I'm still really young and I haven't had that many, like, serious relationships in comparison, so,
Yeah.
but, like, I just think back on them, and I've just been feeling lately, like, that they were full of expectation and they didn't bring me anything, and I always ended up feeling, like, really unhappy. Even when there wasn't something, like, really wrong with the relationship, I always ended up feeling unhappy in them.
That is telling you something.
Yeah, I just feel like we look for those expectations because we think if those are met, that's what will make us happy, but it's not really what it's about at all. That's what I've been thinking about.
Yeah.
But it's so, like, I feel like it's so revolutionary to say that to people, like, to go into a relationship and say that I don't have any expectations for what he will do for me, that I'm just going to live my life and try to fulfill myself, and he's not, like, he's not a part of that. He's not a part of making that happen for me. People don't get that. And then it makes me question, like, my thinking, and, like, is that really even possible to not have any expectations?
We are just human beings, but we understand now more and more than other people how things work on a psychological level. You understand where your misery comes from, and you understand also that you now have the power to avoid it. You do have expectations, and you will always have them, but it is how you deal with them from now on that will make the difference. And one way to avoid essential expectations is to first of all take care of yourself. Provide a strong foundation, physically, mentally, and that will give you the basis to go into relation, any relation, a love relation or business relation or just friendship, without being polluted by false motives, by hidden motives. The difficulty in all this is that we do not acknowledge how we function, that we do not recognize what we are doing. But as yogis who have done a lot of introspection and go deeper and deeper into it, we become fully aware of those things. And to what I told Sam from the beginning is, I love you, but if I have the slightest feeling that I'm a stumbling block in your development, I will let you go. Later, I changed that. Because it became so strong and so convinced that I said, I will never let you go, but I will let you free to do whatever you think you must do, whatever, anything. I will not let you go anymore, but I will let you free. And I'm in a position to help her, support her, and I will do that. And I said, she feels resistance with that, which shows her purity. So I said, do not worry. I have a lot of payback to do. I have been helped a lot myself. So this has nothing to do with creating attachment, making you independent or whatever. I do this in freedom and knowingly, and I will help you, support you. But I did that only after hard contact was confirmed, so that this also is pure. She wants to study, so I will help her to do that. You understand? No expectation. I don't expect anything in return. If our relationship finishes, I will still continue to support. We think that we do everything alone, but I've been helped a lot. The fact that I was able to change my life 20 years ago was because there were some people who helped me to even just have some self-respect, which I didn't have. If I hadn't had that self-respect, I would have ended up like my brothers. But there were people who helped me. They sent me people who helped me, who were just wanting to listen to me. Because everything inside was messed up, and I was starting to think. And within a week I would get stuck. So many thoughts. And then there was somebody to listen to me. And just talking 1 hour would help me to organize all my thoughts. And I could start another week of thinking with a clean sheet. And this really makes me so grateful. And my wife also has helped me. Without her, I think I wouldn't have been able to start a yoga school. I've had a lot of help, and I have a lot to pay back for that. That is, and I will give more than I ever received. That is my mission in life. Good. Questions about the yamas? The morning session had only non-violence and truthfulness. Only one? Go ahead, John.
Said that people who are aggressive are a mirror for the aggression.
People who are?
Aggressive
Yeah.
to us are a mirror for the aggression in us.
Yeah.
But what's the difference between someone who's just aggressive and someone who's a mirror for our aggression? Remember last week you mentioned that there are people who intentionally try to obstruct other people. So how can you tell the difference between people who try to block you and the people who are reacting to the aggression?
No, the reason why you come across aggression is always lies within you. You may think that you are not attracting that aggression of that person who's trying to obstruct you. But why in the first place did you come into that situation where you came across this person? They arrange all that. They put you in that position. They put that other person on that path where you are at.
What about people who just obstruct other people because they enjoy it? You know what I mean?
Like you? No, it's a stupid joke. No, that's not true.
Sometimes I'm playful like that, but I don't obstruct people.
I know. Stupid joke. No, but those people have a role to fulfill, to teach us.
Yeah.
So there is nothing without reason. Those people obstructing your road, they are not there without reason. They are not there for nothing. There's something to learn. There's something to learn about yourself. There's something to learn about the universal laws like the yamas and niyamas. And if you're in the wrong place, because the things that you do in life are driven by desire, which we all do, of course, if you're in the wrong place, you will be confronted with situations and people who give you misery, who obstruct you. And if you are a sensible person, you will draw conclusions from that and come to the conclusion that you are in the wrong place. Actually, everything in life is designed to move you more and more into the path of your heart, your dharma. And as long as you are not on that path, you will encounter obstruction, misery, one way or another, one form or another.
Well, if we take the example of Phil, who I talked about 6 months ago, the difficult co-worker I had.
Yeah, I remember.
He enjoyed playing with people's emotions in a way where he would like wait for the right moment and then say something inflammatory or something and then you have to control your emotions and then
Yeah,
respond to it.
yeah.
What conclusions could I draw from that?
The Hatha Yoga
Like,
Pradipya,
what lessons is the lesson that I shouldn't be in a position where I'm required to, or where I expect myself to supervise people who are older than me with, you know, or...
no, the Hatha Yoga Pradipika is very clear about that. There are 2 sutras that say avoid the presence of unfit people. That is one sutra, and the other say stay away from promiscuous people. And promiscuity in this context is not only referring to sexuality, it is referring to any corruption, any off behavior. So create your own heaven on earth, in which you are not obliged to have to work with such kind of people. And that is not easy. On the contrary, the easy way is to just accept it.
So that's the lesson. The lesson would be to
Yeah.
ensure that
Build your own university, choose your own staff, or kind of, that is an extreme. There are, I don't know in which field you are wanting to work in the future, but create circumstances in such a way that you are free to choose with whom you work. And that can take decades. But that is your duty to your heart, to yourself.
So that would be the lesson from that experience.
I think so. There are various lessons. You mentioned, for example, that you control your ego, your emotions, etc. That is very valuable. But in the end, the question is, how do I avoid this? How can I, in the future, avoid having to work with such kind of people, having to put up with these kind of people? And that is by creating your own paradise, by creating your own realm.
What about diplomatically ignoring behaviors that I don't like and rewarding behaviors?
You know, if you have...
through the ways that I respond. Like,
If you-
for instance, if he says something foolish, I can just keep talking as if he hadn't said anything at all. And then, like, hypothetically, I don't work with him anymore. But hypothetically,
If you have the power to do that, I think that is possible, but then you are on the path of manipulating people, and you are going to violate some of the yamas and niyamas.
would that be violence or would that be?
You know, this is a very, how do you say, variable situation. There are many aspects to it. You can teach him a lesson by certain behavior. The question is, would you want to do that, and is it constructive for you in your process? There are people who have the ability to actually control such people, play with them. But the question is that constructive? That is, in my opinion, it would just be a distraction from your own goals. It can be fun, of course, and it gives a sense of power to control people and manipulate them, but you're violating purity and truthfulness, and whether it's violent, it could end up becoming kind of violent, like psychologically. But Yeah, to answer this, you have to just look inside and detect if there is any disturbance. Because you know that you violate yamas and niyamas by the disturbance that it causes in you. There is a breach of energy circulation. And this disturbance is so subtle that most people ignore it, are not aware of it. But we more and more become aware of that because of our increasing sensitivity and awareness, consciousness. And that is actually the only guideline you pay attention to. Are you in sattva, or is there some whirl of energy, small as it may be? The slightest disturbance is telling you something is going wrong. Something is causing disturbance, disruption. That is basically your guide in life to come to more and more sattva. Less and less distraction from your real goals. And the more efficient you become at it, the more efficient you will become at reaching your goal. Thank you for the obstruction.
I have a question.
Yes, the troublemaker.
Let's tag out. When there's some situation...
I think both of you are communicating between your gadgets.
You got it. There's some situations when, like,
yeah.
I mean, if I feel like I either have to be, if I'm like truthful, it's going to be violent. But if you gotta have to choose, like, which one do you choose, being truthful or non-violent? There's a tension between those two.
Yes, I understand.
I think we mentioned it before.
Yeah, we discussed it
I
before.
didn't learn the lesson.
No, it is a very valid question because that is indeed a dilemma that you have to solve based upon some of the other yamas and niyamas. Purity is involved here. Your motive for wanting to force the truth down somebody's throat. But bluntly being truthful can be violent, but actually not being truthful can be theft. People have a right to know something. So we have the concept of white lie, or in Korean, sonye kotimai. Every culture has this concept. And why do we have this concept of a white lie, which we think according to our conscience is allowed? That's why it's called a white lie. That is to avoid greater damage. Talking with children, for example, children do not have to know the full truth, always, because they may not be mature enough to handle the truth. So you can come up with something that comes as close to the truth as possible, but without the harming effect of the blunt truth. So you always have to consult with your conscience. You have to look at the issue from various angles, using your alertness, your turya, to see that, to anticipate, if I do this, then that will be the reaction. If I do that, then that will be the reaction. If I don't, then it is leading to other consequences, or no consequences that should take place, etc. So it's a very dynamic, very dynamic process in which you go about very carefully. You do make mistakes sometimes, and when you do that, then you just have to learn from that. I think I told you this before, but I've noticed that in relation to truthfulness, but also other yamas, as a human being, you have a tendency to react in set ways, as you've done always in your life. So you have a tendency to not reveal, what's the opposite of revealing? To conceal, thank you, to conceal the truth. because you are scared. There is fear in you that tells you that if I say this, they will not like me anymore, or they will kick me out, or they will fight me, or they will think I'm worth nothing, or that it is because of fear that you tell a lie, actually. It is very important to acknowledge this. I have noticed, I told you before that if you practice yoga long enough and integrate the yamas and niyamas into your life, they become second nature. They become part of you. And I have noticed that when I'm about to conceal something or tell a lie, there is, which I would have done in the past, based upon fear, there is a mechanism that kicks in and that says, just tell it as it is. And if the reaction is not what you want, if the reaction is rejection, then this is not meant to be. So whatever happens, it is okay. And I did that with Sam. I told her within a week that I'm still married. We just came into, we were talking about something, and it rose to the surface of my consciousness that I have to tell her I'm married. The first reaction was, no, not yet. It's too early. I may destroy totally what is going on now. And immediately there was this second nature kicked in and said, no, just tell her as it is, and if it is not meant to be, she will become emotional, her ego will explode, and she will walk away. Then that is meant to be. And if that happens, the next thing I thought, if that happens, then I will be saved for a lot of misery in the future. And you know what? She just took it in, and she never talked about it anymore after that. And now she's helping me to go through the procedure to get a legal divorce. So it's amazing what honesty can do. I would have suffered if I had not told her that, walking around with a secret. And then she feels that I'm walking around with a secret, but she cannot pinpoint it. And then what happens? Tension, conflict, etc. The honesty is really... You know, in Dutch we say honesty lasts longest. Is there an expression like that in English?
Honesty is the best policy.
Say again?
Honesty is the best policy.
Yeah, similar. But it really is. It really is. I have no fear anymore, and that really helps me to when I am about to violate one of those principles, immediately something kicks in that makes me do the right thing. And it is so refreshing to notice that people appreciate it rather than rejecting you. And that reinforces your resolve to just be who you are. And that in the end, I think everybody would appreciate. Just be who you are, without fear of repercussion or rejection. But in answer to your question, there needs to be some tact and some diplomacy. Because your motive may not always be pure. Like the picture John painted there about people playing. You can have a devilish pleasure in telling people things that will aggravate them, irritate them. So you're being truthful, which is good, but your motive to be truthful is just to pinch people, to make them jump off their seat, to make them explode, and then you're not being pure anymore. So I don't know if you have noticed this yourself yet, but everything you do in life will be more and more put upon the template of your yamas and niyamas. The framework of the yamas and niyamas becomes decisive in everything that you do. The moment that you have a thought or you have a plan to do something, say something, whatever, you first check with the yamas and the niyamas whether you are correct or not in doing so. This becomes a natural, it becomes a natural mechanism that you will, and it is really, really helpful. It really makes life a lot easier.
Is that how you would define integrity? Living up to the
Yeah. Integrity is morality. Absolutely. You know, integrity for teachers, and most of you are teachers, is one of the, in the past, if you were trained to be a teacher, integrity was one of the most important things you learned about. I don't know if that is still happening. But you can feel the potential for total disruption if there is no integrity. As a teacher, as a real teacher of whatever, people come to you to learn, to develop, to grow, whether they are children or adults. And because they come to you, you just have the universal duty to help them, give them what they came for, without abuse, without using your position to fulfill your greed or desire. It can be sexual, it can be material. If you look at the practice of the white envelopes in Korea, which is still widespread, although it is illegal since a couple of years, teachers demand those envelopes. And if not, they will disadvantage the child of that parent who didn't give an envelope. This is so ugly. This is just total corruption. And parents, knowing that this is not right, they do it anyway because they want their child to be favored in class. So integrity is just looking at yourself in the mirror. Can you still look yourself in the eyes? That is the question you should ask yourself every morning. Sensitive people cannot violate integrity. You just can't. Not only your concern for people's well-being, because that is, I think, the main thing, that you don't harm people but you help people to advance, but also yourself. If you are, how do you say this? In Dutch we can make it a verb, or a noun. If you're not being integrity, I'd say that. If you're not being, if you don't uphold integrity, you set yourself up. Sooner or later, the truth will overtake you. Sooner or later, your violation of integrity will catch up with you, and you lose your job, you lose your position, you lose the respect people have for you. Your future can be totally destroyed by it. Rodney Yee is a perfect example of this. You never hear of this guy anymore. You know Rodney Yee, the celebrity yogi? He was a gymnast, so he has a beautiful body. He's very strong and skillful, so he can do the most beautiful yoga poses. That made him famous as a yoga teacher. The last thing we heard from him is that he had multiple relationships with students while being married. He's puked out. He's nowhere anymore. Stupid. So stupid. He had such a promising future in front of him. He just totally destroyed it by violating the principles that he's teaching to his students. How stupid are you then? Well, we should feel some compassion for him because of his ignorance. But he really totally destroyed his future. What can he do now? Wash dishes in a restaurant?
I never heard of it. When was this guy famous?
Just type it in, Rodney Yee. Yeah, very famous. He has a lot of videos and appeared in magazines. And I don't know what.
Korean guy? Yee?
Oh, he could be actually, like maybe his ancestors.
I think he did family yoga or something. He has some family yoga videos with his wife and his children, or I've seen something
Yeah.
yeah.
I've seen that.
Yeah, he looks Asian, but
Yeah.
very well built. When he was a gymnast, so he's really well built and very flexible and very strong. Being able to poses that we are going to do today. That's a promise. Let's have a short break. Or you must be willing to stay around till 12 o'clock.
If you want, I was going to take it from the start. Okay. Thank you very much.
Why is this heater on blocking the back?
Good luck building that university. Yeah, you got the job, right?
Yeah.
I'm recruiting.
Is it too hot if I turn it on here, or shall I put it on the other side? Should I leave it here? If it gets hot, don't turn it off because it affects the temperature in the room. It's better to move a little bit, or move the heater. You can move the heater. Yeah. So it's not going to make you uncomfortable. The room is chilly inside. How do you think of the translations that Subin provides? You don't read them? It's okay. I was just curious because you made all the translations for the rest of the world. I was just curious how you. Are you in English?
Yes, I read about it.
No, it's okay. I was just curious. No, only if you are interested in it. I was just curious if you have feeling about it.
Felt so upset. Felt the pain.
I like the it's green tool. If you have any sharp edges on your hand, you just can make them. Oh, if you ever have like any sharp anything, I can't know it's a guy from Patanjali. Yeah. It's like the stuff. It was a good movie. It was too cold. Oh no, just I have to find someone to come into my room. Well, I don't like cold weather,
But the movies
for
are
another
not
house, it's just
Yeah.
yeah. I have to fight winter every year. I don't like it either, yeah.
Around rivers.
But it didn't
Yeah,
stop me
yes.
from moving. I really want to move.
Yeah.
And I saw movie
months ago with my husband and his friend. And it felt like, in the very beginning, everything felt like, this is exactly how I pictured it. So it's great. But then, at the end, it gets kind of confusing. But maybe just because I already knew what was happening. That's why. But I was worried that my husband wouldn't like it. But he was like, no, just the very ending is kind of like shocking. But I was afraid my husband wouldn't get it. He wouldn't see how it's linked
I heard
together.
that in the book they say that the end of the story is what's more explaining.
Yeah.
But in the movie it was very short.
I hoped that they would replay it just a little bit differently. You know how No, I hate reading books. I get a headache and my eyes are but it was when my husband bought the tickets, I told him really, but he was like, but then when I saw it, I was like, yeah, it's really how I understand.
You should come.
The tiger
Yeah.
I heard that was good.
You can take vacation time. Like if you're sick, you don't have to work and then they pay for you. Walk is
No, you.
I was thinking, because I saw here
Okay, we start with Madhura's part, which you all can do. Because we've done it many times in the basic course already. That's a dead peacock.
I don't need to do it. I'm enlightened. I don't need it.
Sorry, Ron.